Well, here we are at Just Car People Things, and one of the things we love to reinforce about being a car person is that you have a lot of projects and you're always working on something related to your garage or your shop or your car. And so I wanted to take a minute to restore this vintage 1970s chair. I inherited it from my grandpa, thought it would look pretty cool here in the garage. I'm going to put it up in the loft there on the right in the garage, and I think the orange really sets off against some of the other accents that are blue and gray in the garage. So we're going to take a quick crack at cleaning it up. It's pretty grimy. First, I want to mention a little aside about my grandfather, who I inherited this from. That's him there in the center of that photo at the Warren Tech Center, working on a 671 GM supercharger back in the 50s. And we really enjoyed his company and all the work that he did at GM for many years. So we're going to break some detailing rules here, and we're going to put a little bit of Dawn in our wheel bucket. And this chair is particularly grimy. It's kind of got like oily garage film on it. We're also going to throw a little bit of the car wash and wax at it, kind of the more traditional car washing soap. We get that in the big bucket at Costco. And yeah, from there we'll just, oh, is that? No, that could get mixed in. There we go. That's a little better. Could just use a little mix. Got a variety of tools in there. We'll go through, there's a scrub brush, like more of a traditional scrub brush, a sponge with a scrub pad on it, a detailing brush, and a few other odds and ends. We're going to toss a couple microfibers in there too. So I think we're pretty much set. Yep, both thumbs up. We're going to throw gloves on for this. I've got a funny feeling that we're going to be using a little bit more aggressive of a product. We might need to get into something, more like almost like a wheel or rubber cleaner, and that can be a little bit rough on your hands and everything else. And just good to get a little bit of protection as we work on that. So you can see, yeah, there's definitely like a film on this, almost like a white powdery kind of grossness to it. You can see the dirt's kind of moving around. The color hides a lot of the dirt, but there's definitely a level of grunginess to this that is going to need to come off to really be comfortable sitting in it and not expect it to transfer. So there's a couple microfibers. We got a couple big microfibers. I don't want to soak this thing down totally with a hose. I think that's probably a little overkill. I don't want the foam to get saturated inside. It was never an outdoor piece of furniture, so we're just going to start least aggressive first, right? So we're going to take a crack, make sure the material is sound, make sure it's still got some elasticity in it, which it looks like it does. Just agitate it pretty good with a microfiber and kind of get into it. And oof, yeah, there's that grime hiding in there. So it's kind of pulling it up a little bit, like in a little streak there, but maybe we'll give a shot to our detail brush. This is one of our detail brushes. We use a similar size one for lug nuts and wheels on cars. And we'll just agitate that with a little bit of the soap on it, and yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's enough agitation there. It's not stiff enough to really get into the pores of this. We'll give it a shot now at a more traditional stiff bristle brush. Had I been thinking more about it, I honestly might have grabbed my drill brush for this. This might be a really good application for a drill brush, but I'm noticing I'm able to get into that seam there a little bit with this brush. Keep working. And we'll just do that one little patch there and kind of see what we come away with after scrubbing at it for a minute. So, the brush is looking a little ugly. We'll wring out our sponge, and this is just a kitchen sponge. This is not something you're really going to use on a car very often, but let's take a look here at what we get out of that. And yeah, so you just look at the difference in color from right there over to right there. And I know one side's wet, but you can see that kind of greasy film that was on this chair from sitting in a garage for some years, probably decades, coming off there. Grandpa had a pretty cool shop. He had a 1959 Jeep, Volkswagen Thing at one point. Despite working for GM, they were pretty agnostic to having kind of cool cars, many of which long before I was born. I joked that once I was born, they got rid of all their Corvettes, which they had Corvettes for many years, including my dad, and all went to having weird Volkswagens and other oddities that they'd work on. But he always had a shop. He always had something going on. He'd work 24/7 well into his 90s in his shop. And, when you become a car person, that's often how it gets inherited down to you. But we're scrubbing away here. And, yep, there we go. So, let's see how much dirt we actually just pulled off there. Oh, yeah, there it is. So I don't think you'd want to be sitting on that. We're actually going to just kind of almost wipe that off on the side of the bucket. I don't even really want to put too much of that back in the bucket. It's kind of the perk to a sponge. And again, we don't want to just totally saturate this with water. I think that might be, a way to damage it. So I'm just going to scrape that off. Look at the difference on that sponge. Whoa. So yeah, that's all the dirt that was hiding on there. I know in that first picture, when you kind of did the walk around, it didn't look super grimy, but man, it was pretty grimy. So I'm not sure how much this is pulling off. We're going to go to something a little. This is Plan C, and this is Wesley's Bleach White, and it's a pretty aggressive product. It's an acidic wheel cleaner. It is generally rubber safe. Generally, I find it to be color safe on something like this. I did do a little bit of a test patch on the underside earlier before doing this video. I always recommend doing a test patch with a more aggressive product like this. Keep in mind that any acidic, kind of higher acid product is going to dry the vinyl out. So vinyl is, much like your skin. I know we've talked about that in like our Bantam trailer video and other videos we've done where we're working on something like a vinyl or vinyl convertible top. It has elasticity in it. It has oils and kind of a natural flexibility to it. When it dries out, it starts to crack, and that's when it will fail. So what'll do that? Aggressive cleaners, if you're not careful with what cleaner you're using. Leaving it out in the sun, having it sit for many years. The older it gets, the more that oil can kind of just get eaten out of it over just time with the atmosphere, and particularly being in the sun. This thing was never really sitting in the sun, so it's not sun faded, but I can assure you that if it was, it'd be pretty not so orange shape. So there it is. There's the dirt we just pulled off there with that agitation and that cleaner. So again, we started at our least aggressive point with the detail and then move up to our most aggressive. And that's something to think about too for leather. If you've got leather seats in your car, a lot of the principles we're using here are very similar. So I'm noticing when I'm looking at it around the edges and around the back there's still a little bit of dirt. You can just sort of see it. It's got that gray tinge, right along there in that seam. And then we'll work back towards the back there. But you can use these principles for things like leather in your car. In a scouring pad or a scrub pad, the plasticized or rubber scrub pads, the plastic scrub pads are very useful for things like steering wheels and other areas that are kind of grimy. And I actually used to have an Acura I bought, and it was about 90,000 miles on it. A family had owned it, and man, I went to town. I think I used a detail brush and a scrub pad, and the leather went from being kind of a gray beige back to being a light tan. It was unbelievable in some places. It just had never really been cleaned inside, and you just get at it a little bit with like a nice leather cleaner and a scrub pad, and just agitate and get that little foaming action going, and that'll lift a lot of those contaminants out of the pores of the leather. Searching here for the scrub brush. I want to get that kind of along the seams. There's a lot of dirt that's gotten down into that seam. And that's important to mention too for your car. Where your seats have those seams in them, dirt accumulates in there as you sit in them, and put weight in them. It rubs that dirt together in a way that is not particularly helpful for managing your seats and keeping them in good shape. A lot of times when you see seats that have separated on the bottom, where the leather, the vinyl has actually split apart, that's sometimes what's happened there over many years, that grime has gotten in there, that dirt and grit has gotten in there and degraded that material down. Oh yeah, more dirt off there. So look at that, suddenly we're back to clean, and you can really see the difference here between the arms of the chair, which are another upright surface, and then the surface we just cleaned on the seat of the chair. So certainly would not want to be sitting in this chair with a pair of khaki shorts on or something like that before before doing this. You'd get up and the back of you would be just totally covered in dirt. So yeah, we're noticing here there's a little bit of transfer off the frame rails. That's something I don't think that's really avoidable or really you're going to have much ability to clean off. You're going to see that on the underside of this chair as well. Or underside of this piece of cushion. And we'll just get along that edge. We're getting a little dry there, so I'm going to just get a little bit more soap back on that, a little more soapy water. And keep in mind too, the soapy water that we're using, it's got a little bit of that Dawn in it. It's going to have a little bit of that degreasing effect. But again, a drying product. Anything that's going to lift grease out of or oils out of something is something that's going to dry it out over time. And that just means when we get a little bit further into this process, we're going to want to protect this material when it's good and clean to make sure that one, it's easier to clean in the future, and two, that we restore some of that natural, or not, well, unnatural in this rubberized vinyl's case, but restore some of those oils that came along with this. So we're just going to keep scrubbing on the bottom there. Again, there's some of that transfer off that frame on the bottom. I don't think we're going to be able to really remove that without just destroying this thing. And I've now just realized I don't really have a good way to wash this off. So we're going to just kind of do a cheater, what I call a cheater rinse here. We're going to take some wet, damp, wet, clean microfibers and just rub it down and remove all of that material off of it. So this is kind of a little bit of a trick. If you don't want to use the hose, you can just come in here and kind of get all that residue, that soap residue. You can see I'm getting it out of the seams there, just with a clean and damp microfiber. So this is kind of a little bit of a cheater trick to avoid getting the hose out and hosing down something that probably really should be totally soaked with water and get full of water. So you'll see too, there's definitely some spots we've missed, and this is gonna probably pull off a lot of that dirt, the kind of remaining residue that the other microfibers. Yes, you can see a little bit of it there. Maybe a spot or two where it's accumulated. There was also a yellow couch that matched this that we ended up giving away. It just was a little too big and a little too awkward. But we'll come through, give it a little quick dry here. Just kind of dry the material out. We're going to set it in here. It's easier to work like that than on a cardboard box. It's probably a little dirty itself. But man, look at that. It looks like brand new. Nice and shiny. It's still a little damp. So as you'll notice, as this dries, it's going to look dry on the screen. And that's probably the net result of that kind of natural oil, natural slickness to a vinyl product getting worn away a little bit by this more aggressive cleaning. So we went to a more aggressive product, which is the bleach white, and then also a more aggressive method of scrubbing it, which is the scrub pad versus a microfiber. So these are things you can get away with on fabric, vinyl, and leather. Obviously, as you get into the world of automotive paint, that's a little bit different of an animal. But kind of the fun part about this, and I think it's worth mentioning, that beyond just saving a kind of a cool old piece of family history and something that I grew up sitting in as a little kid, it's kind of a cool opportunity to show that the principles that you learn working on cars and being a car person and being really into cars and being into detailing, these principles can apply across just about anywhere. The method of cleaning and the kind of least aggressive to most aggressive approach, these things are all sort of mentality things that can go into working on just about anything, even right down to grabbing that pressure washer here in the background and going to town on a car, or maybe your floor mats, or maybe an area rug, or whatever else. So these are all kind of important things to learn and know, and just kind of know that if it doesn't come clean the first time, there's probably a way to get it there, especially if the material isn't degraded to the point that it's just destroyed. So this is pretty wild, the transformation coming off that right there. That is now just night and day cleaner. And don't get me wrong, what we're doing here, probably completely overkill. This is something that has been bugging me walking by it. I'm a neatnik, you can kind of tell. I've been working here in the garage to try to organize, and where this garage and shop started is a very different place than where it is right now. In fact, it was so grimy in here that we actually had the walls painted the walls a semi-gloss white to help with reflectivity. And believe it or not, that garage door in the background I power washed twice. That's how dirty those insulation panels in the garage door were originally. It was just rivers of dirt rolling down them. So a gentleman lived here for a long time. It was a really neat house. He was a UAW electrician, really went to town making the garage an incredible shop. There's a 2-ton gantry crane you probably saw in there that's air driven back and forth. We've got a lot of other neat stuff here in the garage beyond just the lift and the floor tiles and everything else. I do get asked a lot about the floor tiles as we're moving on to the back cushion here. Not quite as dirty, but man, you can see that grime on there still. Not so great. These garage floor tiles are from an organization called Garage Track. They are more of the residential variation of Race Deck. It's a U.S. made product. It's a little bit thinner than Race Deck, also a little bit less expensive. So it typically runs about $3 a square foot or $3 a tile. I've had very good luck with it. I had about 700 square feet of it in our old house. I moved it down with me down to this house we moved into about a year ago. And man, you can just see all that dirt agitating up there. Ooh. Yeah, scrub. All right. Well, as we get a little bit further into this process, I'll mention a little more about the floor tiles. They do allow water to flow through them in the seams and down into the garage floor. The garage here is doesn't have a drain. We're close to a watershed, to a lake. It's really not a great idea to have like a dry well out from a garage. In fact, in some places, including here, it's not to code, so they didn't install one. Wish it had floor drains. Did in my last house, but that's how it goes. The water here is designed, or the slope of the garage floor does allow water to run out of it, so I can certainly detail in here. We've gone to town on garage lighting and have some very powerful LED halos up in the ceiling versus the more traditional T8 fixtures, and that's allowed us to have a much brighter garage to work in. Yeah, you can just see that grime. We get a little more sponge rinse here going. And the water's still looking pretty good. That's something I always like to keep an eye on under that foam. If you see that water getting really, really gross, dump it. Go get fresh water. You don't want to just be moving dirt around. From the bucket back onto what you're trying to clean. That goes for everything from a car to an old chair like this. So there's that swipe. Yep, you can see all that dirt that's come off there. We're just going to wring that out then right on those tiles. We do have a few free flow tiles to help let the water through. May grab a few more over time. Those ones are on the left, kind of by the bucket there. They kind of look like they're mesh. But you can jack a car up on these. Our 4-post lift actually floats on these tiles, which is kind of crazy for people that see it the first time. And I've had really good luck with them. They clean up nice. You can come in with a pressure washer and blast them. You can get a broom up there on the right or a scrub brush up there on the right and throw a little soap and water on them, and they scrub up pretty good. So nice to be able to go out in the garage. It also, one, gives you a little cushion when you're walking around, so you're not just standing on concrete. Epoxy floors don't have a lot of cushion. These also don't get super slick. They've got good little diamond plate kind of pattern on them. And so that's a product I've really come to enjoy, and for probably half the cost of what it would have been to epoxy the floor in the garage, with some significant trade-offs. The floor in this garage was also super, super dirty, and I had some real hesitations and fears about epoxying it, and maybe watching all that epoxy just flake off a few years later. Epoxy, I think, for the garage was running up around something like $5 or $6 a square foot versus about $3 a square foot. So here we're just going to come in and try to remove a lot of that dirt with the sponge. This is a bit of a cheater method here. This is not a traditional process for kind of cleaning something, but it works. And some of these principles again do apply back to working on a car. But if you're into cars, you're into having a cool garage, and this is something that I think we're going to enjoy having in here and enjoy parking over. In front of the Camaro. We've got a TV mounted on the wall, and kind of have a little sitting area down there. May put it down there, may move it back up into the loft. I think over time here with the YouTube channel and these videos, we're gonna do some interviews up there and maybe have some hangout time up in that garage loft. Plus, it's always cool to be able to just sit 10 feet off the ground with your car right next to you. So that's always a kind of a move that makes you look super cool, or not. Or super broke after you spend a fortune for a lift, which, by the way, totally worth it. A lift is something I wanted for a really long time. I settled on a 4-post with a bridge jack because I do a lot of kind of storage with it. We've got 2 big garage doors. If I had 3 garage doors, I may have gone to a 2-post, which is a little bit better for doing things like wheel changes and more traditional work. But anyways, this is turning into more of a discussion about garages than cleaning up an old vintage chair, but yeah, we're just going to see that dirt just flow out of that dingy water flow out of that right there. Always happy to answer any questions about the garage, any of the process things we've gone through. I'm sure as work on it progresses, and we've been here about a year, and we get some of the construction stuff out of the garage, some of the boxes out of the garage, some of the things kind of put into their final places, and their final touches, and more art hung on the walls. We'll do a full garage walk around just because it's a lot of fun. I do have a standing rule that I won't put anything on the garage on the walls that doesn't have a story or a personal connection behind it. So always happy to walk through and chat about some of those things. If you see something you're curious about, just drop a thumbs up in the comments, or drop a question in the comments, and we'll go from there. Just drying these off. This is a dry rag, dry microfiber rag, just to get them kind of more quickly dry, and yeah, they're looking pretty good. You can see that they almost are starting to look a little more faded as these guys are drying off. They don't have that slick look. It looks more like a dry vinyl, and that's something we're going to have to address. But first, I think we're going to take a quick crack. We're going to dry those off real quick. And quick crack at just the frame itself. There's, I think, a lot of dirt hiding on that frame, and it's a metal frame. It's got like a spring bar suspension across the bottom there. But I do have a fear that if these are really grimy and dirty, which they almost certainly are, they're going to start eating away at that vinyl on the underside. So say you're sitting in the chair, much like grit getting into those seams in your leather seat in your car and starting to chew away at that. That's all bad news. I'm not remotely worried about scratches or swirl marks here. This is already pretty beat up, so I'm not going to panic if the rag touches the ground, or the brush touches the ground or something like that. So this is more just a quick cleans, quick wipe down. We're saving a family heirloom here that's clearly worth tens of dollars from the dumpster. So this is just kind of more of a silly exercise than anything, but kind of shows some good technique, and just kind of a neat process here. The garage that you're in has full HVAC, and we really try to make sure that it doesn't get too dirty in here, just because that HVAC system is going to circle that dirt around. We're now onto the process where we're actually hosing the frame down itself. It was easier just to grab the hose than try to monkey with just the microfibers. So that made the process a little bit easier. We're just grabbing that hose right off there, and yeah, look at the dirt that's pooled there at the bottom of those pucks. Wow. All right. Cool. Well, this is a little bit of that process, and just want to make sure we're rinsing it down really good, and then I think we're good from there. So jumping back over, we're just going to now dry this. We're going to wring the water out of this microfiber, and okay, cool. We're on to the drying process for this. We want to try to get those slats as dry as we can. Don't want water to kind of accumulate inside of any of the tubing where there might be holes in it, so that could cause corrosion, cause it to leak over time, or whatever else. And we just want to avoid that. So all that to say, quick dry in process here, and we're going to get back to kind of protecting that vinyl and making sure it looks good. Just tilting the chair back here to drain those pucks out, and yep, you can see that one dripping off there on the bottom. And all right, I think we're looking pretty good. So this is pretty much dry, and I think it's going to air dry here. I actually have the fan. We have a ceiling fan, large ceiling fan in the garage going in the background. So we're just going to dry this real quick with that same green dry towel that we did the seats with, or the cushions with, and go through that process to dry all this. All right, get the legs and work our way back across, nice and easy. All right, perfect. And this will let us throw this thing back together here real quick right now without much delay. I know I mentioned earlier in this process that we've kind of dried out that vinyl by using something like a bleach white, something that's a much more aggressive cleaner, and a much more aggressive scrub pad. We've sucked a lot of the moisture out of these things, so now we're going to have to come back through and add it back in. And I think the easy solution to that is going to be probably using 303 aerospace protectant. And I always like to tell people this is like an Armor All type product on steroids. It gives a nice, decent shine finish. It is not a matte finish, so that is something to be aware of unless you kind of come back and fully wipe it off. But this really, you can see it really restores that material. I use this on absolutely everything. It's a great product, very, very well reviewed, very successful across the board for this sort of application. Wouldn't use it on leather. Leather is going to be a different animal, so like our GX460 has semi-aniline leather. Would not use this product on the leather. On something like the door cards, though, that are kind of hard, a series of hard plastics and vinyls, perfect product for that. So I do use this quite a bit. It does have some level of cleaning properties, so if you do scrub something that's a little bit dirty with it, it will pull that dirt off. It's just kind of a good all-arounder for a maintenance item on this. In fact, I will put this on a little bit thicker. I'll leave it a little bit slicker. There's still some dampness in the vinyl. You can see it pull a little dirt off from certain spots. And may come back even in a week or 2 weeks and just coat this down again, and that will give that opportunity for that material to come in. So look at how dry it looks in the bottom versus how it looks on the top there, and that's just adding that protection and oils back into the material itself. So you can almost see the color richen, deepen too. That's kind of another nice thing about it. So if you've got bold colors in your car, maybe you've got a red interior or blue interior. I use this a ton in my S2000, which is Suzuka Blue, which means it's also blue inside. Oh, wrong bottle. Easy there, killer. Oh, there we go. That's the right bottle. Okay. Let's not spray booze weight on this just right when we're trying to be finished with this process. We've already spent, frankly, way too long on this JR, probably close to 30 minutes in this JR already. But good something fun to do on a nice, cool summer evening. So just come back through one last little wipe down, kind of even the coat out on there, and yeah, we'll get the cushion on the back. So that guy sits across the back there. It's not in the right position quite yet, but we gotta grab the right bottle. Are we grabbing the right bottle? Maybe. Yeah, that's the right bottle. Cool. Always fun when you go to grab your quick detailer and you start spraying and realize you just sprayed your bottle of wheel cleaner or tire cleaner on the paint after you've just finished washing it. So take your time. That's the one other thing I'll say from a detailing perspective. Most things can be fixed with time and effort, and sometimes it is blood, sweat, and tears, but it is worthwhile to be able to do that. And we're kind of rounding third base in this project here, and it's looking really good. This is something now that it's almost going to be a little bit of a conversation piece when you come in the garage, and there's a really cool chair hanging out in that loft space up there with some other chairs and furniture we've got up there, and we invite all the car people over that we are a party to, and we'll actually often have garage parties where we'll all hang out here in the garage. It's a really fun thing to do in the winter, particularly just because we've got heat out here, and I find we're up in Michigan, and the weather gets cold, and it's nice to just be inside in a warm garage space, tinkering with your friends on stuff. So I think we've done Grandpa proud here, and fixed up this chair. I know it seems like a silly process, but we'll show you the final result here in a second, and about how this looks and how it really now pops in the garage. This is a neat 70s kind of mid-century modern piece. It's real low to the ground, and I think it'll be just a great addition to the garage and to the shop here, which is kind of a quirky, goofy thing. So that's our final result, and we'll just do one last quick walk around. There's our loft up there where the chair's probably going to go sit, and it's been a fun project. And again, happy to drop any comments in the chat. This is a silly project, but we here at Just Car People Things appreciate you liking and subscribing and asking us any questions. And thanks for tuning in. Hope we didn't bore you to death with tonight's project.